Alright, what's going on everybody, it's Liam here, and welcome to today's video on the channel. And in today's video, I have a new tier list for PvP for y'all. I'm going to do this one a little bit different. I'll be starting off with the worst schools and then going to the best schools. And keep in mind, this is my opinion. If you guys would like to comment your tier list down below, I would be happy to check it out. But yeah, without further ado, y'all, let's get right into things. Real quick, I just want to say right now, every school in the game is pretty much balanced. You know, there's a couple of broken strats and, you know, gimmicks that pop up in a meta that make a school better or another one worse. But for the most part, every school right now is playable if you pack the counters and you have good gear and you're a decent player. And yeah, starting off with the number 7 spot, I think I'm going to have to put Ice. Now, I don't think Ice is a bad school, actually, this update. I think comparatively, it's a bad school. So, for example, every other school right now can deal with meta things better than Ice can, you know? Ice still has ridiculous stats, you know, 12k health, 70 to 80 resist, really cracked, you know, pierce, block, crit, all that stuff. You have Blimp, which is objectively broken as well. You have Frostbite and, you know, really solid cards as well. So if you are a good player on an Ice, you can win quite a bit. I think the issue with this meta right now with Ice is the fact that healing is so good on both Life and Storm, although you can counter Storm healing, not Life really, on an Ice. It just slows things down enough to the point where Ice can't really do much about schools that heal a lot. And that's why it is here at the number 7 spot. Coming at the number 6 spot, I think I'm gonna have to put Fire. Now, I don't think Fire is a bad school right now at all. I think on a Fire, you can beat pretty much everybody. I've only lost to Death on my Fire, and that's because Death is extremely broken right now in the current meta. It's kind of weird, because Fire is bad because Death is broken, but then, like, Myth is broken, so Storm is bad. This tier list won't really make much sense, but that's kind of how it works right now in the current meta. Fire you can do a lot on, and Myth is pretty popular, so if you Myth pin and you play well on a Fire, you can beat a Myth pretty well. And obviously Ice isn't queued as much right now, but you can gas an Ice if they are not warded pretty easily. Just run, you know, a regular Fire strat and, you know, throw on a Fuel or 2 right before you're gonna S'more into a Jhin, and your opponent oftentimes won't expect and be ready to counter what you're doing and the amount of damage you're going to do. So I think Fire actually is in a pretty solid spot right now, in my opinion. If anything, I think it's a bit worse just because Storm is so good at the moment. On a Fire, you can beat a Life if you pack heal counters like Contagion and Doom and stuff like that. You know, but a Storm, you can't really beat them because if you Contagion, you typically die, you know, if you're Fire versus Storm, right? So I think Fire is just a little bit towards the pack because comparatively, again, the schools above it are so much better, and Storm is extremely good right now in the meta. Coming in at the number 5 spot, I think I am going to have to put Life. Now, this actually, again, is not because I think Life is bad. I think Life is really good right now, and a lot of players can Jade to win right now, which is kind of what you see on the leaderboard, actually. But Life is really good because the meta slowed down a lot, and obviously in a slower meta, Life will be better because you can hit and heal, and your burst heals are still unchecked. And the fact that you have 8 or 10 bubbles that are uncontested by 6 out of 7 schools, you know, you're just absolutely cracked and good to go on a Life this update. In my opinion, if you ward to Death and Storm on a Life, it's literally impossible for you to lose if you're a good player currently. So if you're a good Life player, it would be a pretty good time to queue right now, in my opinion. And yeah, again, I just think Life has some of the best stats in the game right now, and the meta really favors Life at the moment. And then all the other stuff with Life always winning bubble and other schools can't contest their bubble just makes it a really good school in a slow meta. Coming in at the number 4 spot, I think I am gonna have to put Balance. Now, Balance is kind of in the middle for me. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's good. I think a good Balance can do a lot right now. Right now in the current meta, all you see Balance do really is Gearhead and basically set up their new Jhin spell that is extremely OP at the moment. So they just go for the Jhin and they mana burn a lot and maybe throw in a Clockwork and you know, throw in a mock, and that's really all they do right now. The only reason balance isn't lower on this tier list is because the fact their stats are just so objectively broken, you know? Again, I have all this health, damage, resist, accuracy, crit, block. I'm supposed to have 53 pierce, by the way. And I don't give up a thing, you know? So balances, stats, and cards is what's keep them from being like a number 6 or 7 spot on my tier list. If you're a good player and you pack counters and you play well, you can win to pretty much anybody on a balance right now in the current meta. Alrighty, so now we are into the top 3 spots of the tier list. We have Death, Myth, and Storm. Now, right now, I think I'm gonna have to put Storm at number 3. I did want to put it higher, but I've just kind of seen how broken Death is recently. I haven't even been on my Storm since I hit Warlord. I've been playing the other schools that are supposed to beat Death, and Death is just so broken right now in the meta. So I would have put Storm at number 1 or number 2, but with Death being extremely overtuned right now, I think I'm going to have to put Storm at number 3. So I think this is the first time Storm has been top 3 on one of my tier lists, and you guys know I keep it honest here on the channel. But Storm is really good right now for a couple of reasons. You can hit and heal for a lot, and if they counter the heal with a contagion, they'll typically lose, right? So what you see a lot of people do is pack Gearhead Destroyer and Snowdrift and steal the heal, and then the Storm loses immediately. But if they don't contagion or if they don't Gearhead, you can pretty much win pretty easily on a Storm, you know? I run Elf Pet with Berry Surprise. I don't run Beetle because typically when you Beetle, you're better off burying. Nowadays, typically, I have noticed. But, yeah, you just pack a lot of sets, pack Sanctuary, really get Bubble, Catalan a lot, and just try to be smart and play in the moment. And on a Storm, honestly, you can pretty much beat anybody. I'd say Storm is only bad because Myth is broken right now, like I talked about in the Fire example. Myth is just a better Storm currently. So what you see a lot happen in the meta is Storms will Myth Ward and Death Ward. I've seen some Storms not even balance Ice or Death Ward and only Myth Ward because of how broken Myth is right now in the current meta. And I'll be talking why Myth is a little bit broken in the next point or two here. But I think if Myth wasn't so overtuned, Storm would easily be number 1 or number 2. Same thing with Death being overtuned right now in the meta. But yeah, if you're a good Storm player, you can do a lot and pretty much beat anybody in the current meta. Alrighty, so at the number 2 spot here, I think I am going to have to put Death. Now, I would honestly tie Death and Myth, but I think Myth is a bit better than Death right now, in my opinion. Death, my beloved. My second highest ranked character. I got him to 1940 this update, I believe. A little bit behind my Storm there. This school right now is an absolute menace, you know. You have some of the best stats in the game, just like balance, right? You have, you know, so much health, damage, cap, so much resist. You don't give up a single stat, so much pierce, you know. You just absolutely fry half of the schools in the game. Not to mention, you have spells like Ghoul, which is like Rain Beetle 2.0. And you have Grim Reader, which basically takes away half your opponent's health if they're not like an ice, and stuns them for 2 rounds pretty much. Assuming you read it right at a tactical time for the most part. But I've seen deaths just hit through shields because their damage is so high. And I've seen people take objectively better trades against a death, and they still lose because of how imbalanced stats are right now in the meta, right? I've been on the receiving end of this, and I've done it to deaths as well. Or sorry, other deaths or other schools. A death can just play bad, but because they have so much health, resist, block, weaknesses, and shields, they can just easily make up for that and win trades, right? So for example, right now, you see a reader do like, I think the exact same as a S'more, for example, but a fire has 1,000 less health than a death, right? And then that's just completely neglecting the fact that you get 2, you know, weaknesses that you can't even hit through, and you can't like empower them off either, you know? And then combine that with the fact that your death, you're actually incentivized to pack dooms and heal counters to counter life and storm, which are very good right now in the meta. that buffs you up even more. And then on top of that, you have Vampire, which I think is a overtuned card from the audit that they forgot to look at. But basically, this is just like a hit and 2 minus 60 weaknesses, which is absolutely cracked, and it drains as well, so it's just insane, you know? You combine the utility of Vampire with Reader and the amount of stats you have, and you know, the hit and 2-round stuns like Vampire and Reader. Death is just an absolute menace right now, and it's quite literally unstoppable, you know? Snowman got nerfed and Ice sucks, so the only school that can keep Death in check is literally Myth. And then even then, like, you're not going to weakness stack against a Myth on a Death, right? You'll do it to the 6 other schools, and you'll beat the 6 other schools on a Death. But, yeah, just really cracked cards with Vampire and Reader. Too good, in my opinion, and way too good of stats right now on a Death. But it is very good, and definitely deserves a spot at number 2. Coming in at the number 1 spot, I think you probably guessed it if you're, you know, anybody. Myth has been very broken for a long time now in 5th Age. This is no secret. You know, the player base knows it. You know, I think the devs know it. I think they do, and they're just trolling. Because we tell them Myth is broken, and then they act like nobody says Myth is broken, which is like the stupidest crap ever. But basically, literally everybody and their ancestors knows how broken Myth right now is in the current meta. Myth, Balance, and Death get the 3 of the best stats, but Myth definitely out of the 3 has the best stats of those 3. You can have a Storm's damage with 15 more freaking resist, 1500 more health, right? And then like 10 more pierce on a Myth, right? And then you have spells like Yaga, which is pretty damn close to like Rusalka's DPP. It's not quite there, but you combine this with the fact that Myth has like, you know, more block, 15 more resist, 1500 more health, stuff like that. Yaga is basically a Rusalka, but on a better school currently right now. And then Myth can turn every debuff into a buff, or just hit through weaknesses and do half your health, you know? And if you get a life, all you have to do is pack heal counters and go for a shield gambit, and they die, right? So there's 3 main problems with Myth right now. 1, their stats are way too good. 2, their counters don't really counter them really well, which is Fire and Life. And 3, their utility is way too overtuned. So, obviously Calendar got banned, which is really good, but TC Betrayal is still a thing, and there's still 40%, right? Back in the Betrayal meta, this was what the problem was. The 40% is way too big of a buff, especially for a school like Myth, mind you. Way too big of a buff. And then you can stack them with main and side deck. And there's literally no mitigation that will work against Myth right now. You can't weakness, you can't shield, you can't heal because they have too much damage and too much pierce and too much everything. So healing won't work when you're dead, right? When you get one-shotted or you get two-shotted, you can't heal over time. And burst heals hardly even keep up. And most of the time, Life loses to Myth anyways because the amount of burst damage Myth has with their stats. So I really think Myth just needs, you know, either to have TC Betrayal toned down and main deck Betrayal, or just have TC Betrayal banned with main deck toned down, you know? It's just a really pacing issue with Myth, and then the fact Myth can blade stack and you can't counter it at all, you know, if you play a good Myth player, you can't win that, you know? That's a real thing. Even if you counter, it doesn't matter. Putrefaction doesn't matter. They hit through that with Stone, or they Delusion it, and then if you counter it with like Scales, they still have a better hit than you because they've just been buffing every round, right? So a good Myth, you will literally always lose to a good Myth right now in the current meta, and it's just because literally no types of mitigation work against Myth, and the counter schools aren't countering Myth very good, and their stats are just objectively way too overtuned. Like, again, same damage as a Storm, 1500 more health, 10 more pierce, 15 more resist for what? 200 less damage on a card, and then when you trade a Rusalka with a Yaga, it literally does 200 less, like, but they have 1500 more health. So, who's winning that trade when we're both getting two-shotted, you know? But, yeah. Let me know what y'all think about this tier list down below in the comments. I think it's honestly one of my more accurate and better tier lists as well. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you for being here, and as always, take care, y'all.